Only the material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is subject to destruction. And this is Book 2, Shloka 18 of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Therefore fight, O descendant of Bharata. The material body is perishable by nature. It may perish immediately, or it may do so after 100 years. It is not a question of time only. There is no chance of maintaining it indefinitely. But the spirit soul is so minute that it cannot even be seen by an enemy, to say nothing of it being killed. As mentioned in the previous verse, it is so small that no one can have any idea how to measure its dimensions. So from both viewpoints, there is no cause of lamentation because the living entity can neither be killed as he is, nor can the material body, which cannot be saved for any length of time, be permanently protected. The minute particle of the whole spirit acquires his material body according to his work, and therefore observance of religious principles should be utilized. In the Vedanta Sutras, the living entity is qualified as light because he is part and parcel of the supreme light. As sunlight maintains the entire universe, so the light of the soul maintains the material body. As soon as the spirit soul is out of this material body, the body begins to decompose. Therefore, it is the spirit soul which maintains the body. The body itself is unimportant. Arjuna was advised to fight and sacrifice the material body for the cause of religion. I don't have the other thing. Yo enam veti hachranam yash shainam manyate hatam ubau tau na vijanito nayam hanti na hayante. He who thinks that the living entity is a slayer or that he is slain does not understand. One who is in knowledge knows that the self slays nor is slain. When an embodied living entity is hurt by fatal weapons, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed. The spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by any material weapon, as is evident by the previous verses. Nor is the living entity killable because of his spiritual constitution. What is killed, or is supposed to be killed, is the body only. This, however, does not at all encourage killing of the body. The Vedic injunction is ma Heimsat Sarva Bhutam. Never commit violence to anyone, nor does understanding that the living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. Killing the body of anyone without authority is abominable and is punishable by the law of the state as well as the law of the Lord. Arjuna, however, is being engaged in killing for the principle of religion and not whimsically. Na jayate mriyate va kadisim. Nayam utva bhavita vana bhuya. Ajo nitya sasvato yam purano. Na hanyate hanyamane sarire. For the soul there is never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, undying, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Qualitatively, the small atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Soul is one with the Supreme. He undergoes no changes like the body. Sometimes the soul is called steady or kutastya. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformations. It takes its birth in the womb of the mother's body, remains for some time, grows, produces some effects, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born, but because he takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. The soul does not take the birth here, and the soul does not die. Anything which has birth also has death. And because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever existing, and primeval. That is, there is no trace in history of his coming into being. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, etc., of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old as the body does. The so-called old man, therefore, feels himself to be in the same spirit as in his childhood or youth. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree nor anything material. The soul has no byproduct either. The byproducts of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls, and owing to the body, they appear as children of a particular man. The body develops because of the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body. In the Katha Upanishad, also we find similar passage which reads, Najayate mrityate vavipashin, nayam kutashin na vibhavu kashit, ajo nitya sasvato yam purano, na hanyate hanyamane sarire. The meaning and purport of this verse is the same as the Bhagavad Gita, but here is this verse, there is one special word, vapashit, which means learned or without knowledge. The soul is full of knowledge, or full always with consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is a symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart, where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky owing to clouds, or for some other reason, but the light of the sun is always there, and we are convinced that it is there for daytime. As soon as there is a little light in the sky early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. This consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. If so, Krishna's teachings of Bhagavad Gita would be useless. There are two kinds of souls, namely the minute particle soul, Anu Atma, and the super soul, Vibhu Atma. This is also confirmed in the Katha Upanishad in this way. Anur Aniyam Mahato Mahiyam Atmasya Jantur Nihito Guhyam Tam Akrutu Pasyati Vitasoko Datu Prashadan Mahaminam Atmana. Both the supersoul, Paramatma, and the atomic soul, Jivatma, are situated in the same tree of the body within the same heart of living being, and only one who has become free from all material desires, as well as limitations, can by the grace of the Supreme understand the glories of the soul. Krishna is the fountainhead of the supersoul. Also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters, and Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened by Krishna or by his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. Veda vinasinam nityam yainam ajam avayam katam sa purusha partha kam gatayati hantikam. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, unborn, eternal, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. Although the justice of peace awards capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the justice of the peace cannot be blamed, because he orders violence to another person according to the codes of justice. In Manu Samhita, the law book for mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death, so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. Therefore, the king's punishment of hanging a murderer is actually beneficial. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for supreme justice, and as such, Arjuna should follow the instruction, knowing well that such violence committed in the act of fighting for Krishna is not violence at all, because at any rate the man, or rather the soul, cannot be killed. So for the administration of justice, so-called violence is permitted. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Krishna is with full knowledge, so there is no possibility of sinful reaction. Vasasmi Jirnai Ni Yata Vidahya Navani Gritanati Naro Parani Tata Saryani Vihaya Jirani Anyani Samyati Navani Dehi. As a person puts on new garments, gives us old ones, similarly, the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Change of body by the atomic individual soul is an accepted fact. Even some of the modern scientists who do not believe in the existence of the soul, but at the time cannot explain the source of energy from the heart, have to accept continuous changes of body which appear from childhood to boyhood, and from boyhood to youth, and again from youth to old age. From old age, the change is transferred to another body. This has already been explained in the previous verse. Transferences of the atomic individual soul to another body is made possible by the grace of the supersoul. The supersoul fulfills the desire of the atomic soul, as one friend fulfills the desire of another. The Vedas, like the Mundaka Upanishad as well as the Svitsvara Upanishad, compare the soul and the supersoul to two friendly birds sitting upon the same tree. One of the birds, the individual atomic soul, is eating the fruit of the tree, and the other bird, Krishna, is simply watching his friend. Of these two birds, although they are the same in quality, one is captivated by the fruits of the material tree, while the other is simply witnessing the activities of his friend. Krishna is the witnessing bird, and Arjuna is the eating bird. Although they are friends, one is still the master and the other is still the servant. Forgetfulness of this relationship by the atomic soul is the cause of one's changing his position from one tree to another or from one body to another. The jiva soul is struggling very hard on the tree of the material body, but as soon as he agrees to accept the other bird as the supreme spiritual master, as Arjuna agreed to do by voluntary surrender unto Krishna for instructions, the subordinate bird immediately becomes free from all lamentations. Both the Katha Upanishad and Svetlana Upanishad confirm this. Samani Vikshe Purusho Nimagno Nisaya Sosati Muhayamane Jastam Yada Pasatya Anyam Isham Asya Mahimanam Iti Viti Soka. Although the two birds are in the same tree, the eating bird is fully engrossed with his anxiety and moroseness as the enjoyer of the fruits of the tree. But if some way or another he turns his face to his friend, who is the Lord, and knows his glories, at once the suffering bird becomes free from all anxieties. Arjuna now has turned his face towards his eternal friend Krishna and is understanding the Bhagavad Gita from him. And thus, hearing from Krishna, he can understand the supreme glories of the Lord and not be free from lamentation. Arjuna is advised herewith by the Lord not to lament for the bodily change of his old grandfather and his teacher. He should rather be happy to kill their bodies in the righteous fight, so that they may be cleansed at once of all reactions from various bodily activities. One who lays down his life on the sacrificial altar, or in the proper battlefields, is at once cleansed of bodily reactions and promoted to a higher status of life. So there was no cause for Arjuna's lamentations. So I'll stop there and just open it up to discussion. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't have any new thoughts. It's kind of repeating. I feel like it's trying to ingrain in me that, this is the way. It's a lot of the same. The soul, is endless and birthless. And
Mhm.
um, the thing that it's ingraining in me to think differently is the whole thing about that violence is sometimes necessary and that you need to take out the body because of the harm it can do, and also that you're actually helping the person for their next life.
Yeah, I never caught that before. I've read this before and I never caught that part, which rang to me today because of our discussion yesterday. Is like it's an interesting thing. It's like the completion of the karma.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear something funny about psychicness and intuitiveness? As you're
Sure.
reading, I'm like, I hope she's getting something out of this too.
Yes, I am. Thank you for worrying about me. I always do. That's the thing with these texts. It's like no matter how many times you read them, something new always peeks out at you. Right? Whatever you're meant to sort of get when you read it
Mhm.
comes to the forefront of your mind.
But I agree with Alexandra. It's almost like methinks he doth protest too much. It's repeated and repeated and repeated, and it's kind of like, okay, you can stop now, because either wherever we are in terms of understanding that, agreeing with or disagreeing with it is wherever we are,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
let's move on. And I mean, I don't know if there's going to be more of this, but and one of the things it indicates to me is that some of the very objections that Alexandra you were making before about this must be made by many, many, many
Yeah.
people, or the text wouldn't bother repeating the message or deepening the message. It wouldn't bother. So
And I read somewhere, I don't know if it's one of these texts because I've been reading so many books, I'm losing track, but I read somewhere that you must repeat something 1,000,000 times to kind of like rewire your brain or make a new habit. So I feel like it's kind of useful, the repetition for me right now, because it's helping me get it in there.
Yeah, yeah. And that's like all the texts say the same thing. You hear the same thing over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the point. And you forget, you'll read it and then you forget and you're like mired in an illusion again. And then you read it and it reminds you and you say, oh yeah, I remember now. And then you forget. It's like endless. It's endless.
I was speaking with my coach yesterday, who, by the way, I love. I didn't think I was going to get so much out of going to a coach.
Mm.
And, I said, I'm so frustrated. I started this journey when I was 25. I'm 49. And she's like, it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but still, yeah, it takes time. And, I guess like you say, when you're ready with the yoga, but you know, sometimes it can get a little frustrating for me. I wish it'd be a little faster by now.
I know, but that's a surrender. Right? That's for everything in life. It comes when it's going to come.
I have to say, this is the argument that Arjuna, not only will you be doing your duty and this is your role in life, but you'll be helping because you'll be helping to fulfill some of their karma. So isn't that a good thing? Is almost like some of the arguments we've heard politicians make about invading other countries, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that was when we invaded Iraq after 9/11, when it was, after all, people from Saudi Arabia, that were the ones who really caused the tragedy. That was one of the arguments. Well, even if Iraq, if Saddam Hussein wasn't involved in the actual 9/11 assault, he's really bad, and we'll be doing everybody a favor and the country a favor by getting rid of him. And it just, it's sort of, that kind of logic it's not logic, it's wrong, etc. And that, I have to say, that's one of the things that bothers me.
But that was a politician saying it who's a human, and this is a narrative it's supposed to be a narrative between actually God and Arjuna. So God saying it is different than that's the big that's the big schmutz on our culture, where all these humans keep declaring that they know the will of God.
Oh yeah, and God is on our side. Yes, of course.
It's bananas. I posted something about someone who I was excited that they gained a position, and I had all these women posting that like that person is the devil and they're going to go to hell. And I sat back and I just thought to myself, if Christianity teaches that you're not supposed to assume the will of God, correct?
Right.
Alexandra, like you've studied it intensely, like you don't know the will of God. How could you condemn someone to hell when you don't know who's going to hell? Like you might be the one going to hell. I didn't say any of that to them on, it was Facebook. I've been trying not to engage with people on Facebook, but this idea that, it's very difficult to know the will of God, and especially these people who are so mired in illusion, who are making that assumption. It's just so apparent that they're so disconnected from divinity, and so especially that particular situation that had a lot to do with materialism, didn't it? A lot to do with getting that oil. Materialism breeds that sort of separation from the divine will. So
Amanda, let me ask you a question, because I was about to say, I hear what you're saying, but remember that humans wrote this. Did humans write this, or is this conceived of as being written by a demigod or even, well, are these supposed to be the words of God? This story is supposed to be the words of God flowing through someone.
I mean, it's called the Song of God is what it translates to. It depends on who you're talking to, from what lineage,
Yeah.
Prabhupada in particular, who made this translation, says that it was first spoken by Krishna. This is his opinion, is that these are the words of God. Other people say that this is a narrative to explain the yogic philosophy on life in context. And where does yoga come from? They say that it was first uttered by somebody who's considered a god. So, like, it's the first record of it, apparently, like, written down, has nothing to do with where it first actually came from when you talk about the quote unquote history of yoga. And it was, I think it was something Shiva was teaching it to his wife or something, and then someone overheard it, and that's when it started getting passed down. So,
Yeah.
So I went a completely different way with this, and now I'm really confused. So when Sue was telling the story about um, what they did to Iran, um, I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe he knew something. Maybe, he was doing the work of God. I mean, but in the back of my head, I'm saying, hey, they did it for the oil. So I'm a little confused with that because Krishna is showing Arjuna the way and saying this is the way. So now, can it be that some humans do that and they're doing God's work?
yeah, I guess that's like the underlying principle of it, that if it's happening in some capacity, if it's happening in some capacity, there is a will behind it. It's very complex.
Meaning there's a godlike will behind it.
Yeah.
This is part of the larger purpose.
Yeah.
We're running around inside the dream of God, so anything that happens in it is a part of that plan, but we don't know what the karma of those people are going to be afterwards. Is the point, like, to assume you could be accruing bad karma? Who knows? Like, I don't think those people in the Middle Ages who were just drowning women for no reason, saying they were witches, in the Crusades, or any of that, taking over all those. I don't think that those people are going to have very good karma. But who knows? I can't assume to know.
That's why I never want to be in that position.
Well, if you're not a Kurikshetra, you're not a leader of a country, then you hopefully will never be.
Yeah.
But this was like Arjuna's temperament. We're born with certain proclivities and temperaments. I was listening to a talk last night with this very adept yogi. He's seen crazy things. He's like gone into the mountains and the caves and meditated in the Himalayas. He's like a very serious. He spends like months out of the year doing all the hatha pradipika practices. And he was saying, like, that's my proclivity. I can come and meet a person who hates me for the color of my skin and still view them with compassion, that they are so mired in their illusion that they don't see that we are two sparks of the same thing, and still love them, right? He's like, but I know that that's my proclivity and my constitution that's able to move into that sort of like Brahmanic view. And he was saying, all leaders of countries in the Vedas would have a Brahmana. They would have somebody with that kind of view of the world guiding them. And, we are in Kali Yuga. That's just not present right now. So, like the people who, like, he doesn't have the and then the person interviewing him was like, you should become a politician. Like, if only someone like you is a politician. He said, I don't have the proclivity for that. It's like not my constitution. And that's what right, Varnam Dharma is the idea that we are born with proclivities and need to follow them. Right, so it's the same for me. If you look at my Vedic chart, it says that I'm supposed to be a teacher of spirituality. Like, this is my constitution. There was like nothing else for me, I studied other things. I could have done anything, but like I just felt so strongly pulled to this because it resonated with what I'm supposed to do in this life, right? I don't feel comfortable being in a position of authority. I really hate having to be the leader of anything, but you know, I do it on like a small capacity for the yoga studio. But you know, whenever someone mentions like, oh, you should go into politics, I say I would literally become depressed. I can't, I couldn't handle that kind of pressure, right? Because it's not my proclivity, it's not my constitution. So the idea is we're supposed to have these systems where everybody is sort of helping each other to do the right thing and also living by their proclivity. So Arjun's proclivity is a protector. He's a fighter.
Mhm.
So
That's
it
who
could have, right? So it could have gone in two directions. So you have these, like, if you look at our culture, you have these people in military who are the generals. They're probably of that proclivity, right? They're not going to be attracted to or rise up to that station if it's not something that really resonates with them. And it's the same with the politicians in some capacity. Like it's the what do they call the commander in chief? You know,
Mhm.
they want to be in the forefront. They want to, you know, they have the energy to go to battle. So it's just different. And yeah, I can't
Look at
know.
Joe Biden now. The man is 78 years old. He's had one hell of a life,
Yeah,
with a tremendous amount of bad things happening as well as the good things that happen. And he's got more energy than
yep,
4 13-year-old guys out riding
yeah,
their bikes. He's amazing. You're right. I mean, it's almost as if he's really drawn to that, and it is as if he's taking a bath in this river of stuff that just nourishes him constantly.
right.
He's going to be doing it until he falls over.
I think so. You know, he's been trying to become president since he was 45, I read.
Yeah, and he's
Um,
78.
yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's just what he was drawn to.
Yeah.
If I were put in that situation, like after one day, I would be crushed.
And
I
I would be
can't
the
even
kind of
imagine.
person who would see it as a duty and I would do it, but it would not be because I have certain leadership qualities and I was a
Yeah.
leader, but I would do it because it would be the right thing to do, but he is thriving.
Yeah, totally. And that speaks volumes to like what is your proclivity, like what feeds you. What
Exactly.
feeds one person destroys another and vice versa. So
I don't know if you guys remember Jimmy Carter and his presidency, but he was essentially a very good, very moral man, who derided himself and put himself down for having sexual fantasies about somebody other than his own wife,
oh.
which is crazy. It's a fantasy, honey. You didn't go out, you kept it zipped, um, and who only served one term. And I always thought of him as this is somebody who may have done a good job leading in a different capacity, but he was not cut out for this. This was not his thing to do. And that's one reason why he only served one term.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's just my take on it. So proclivities.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you can be, as you said yourself, you studied many things. You can be pretty good at many things and you can kind of force yourself as a round peg into a square hole.
Mhm.
You can be good at many things, but the thing that you should end up doing, if you can at all do it, is the thing that not only are you good at it, but you just are so drawn to it, and I think it's a mistake that a lot of us make and don't realize it until later. That yeah, I was good at that thing that I did, and I made a living. I took care of my family, but it wasn't my love, my passion.
Right. Well, that's what our culture teaches. It's like figure out how to make money, material, right? It doesn't get into that sort of like what is the lean of your spirit. And then we also have this problem with a lot of people just do things that kill their souls because they got to get health insurance.
Yes, exactly. And then there are the external forces, which have a tremendous role in molding who you're going to be
Yeah,
and what you're going to end up doing to pay the rent.
totally, totally. Like I always use my husband as an example. He's always been drawn to finance, always. And when he was in undergrad, he it was the whole like 99% movement, and he felt sort of ashamed. Like he didn't, like everyone would hate him if he became any kind of thing in finance. So he had a different, he studied something different in college. And the whole time he was in charge at Island Rock, he would always like have this yearning to do something with finance, like, oh, maybe I should go back to school. Oh, maybe I should go back to school. And then when he was in his, if I was fine, I was like, yeah, go back to school, you know. And when he got his MBA, he was having that same fight with himself where he was like, oh, well, my dad was an accountant. So, you know, maybe I should just do accounting. It's stable. I can make money. And I'm like, but you want to do finance.
Mhm.
So you've been talking about finance since I met you. Just do finance, you know. So he did that. And then he like really thrived. And I see him now running his own company in that leg. And he's like, he's got so much energy to do. Even we talked to the doctor yesterday, and doctor's like, from his blood, he's like, oh, he must be dragging around after COVID. I'm like, he's not. He's like working so hard and passionately. Like he doesn't seem like he's even skipped a beat. You know, he's just like so fueled by it. He has so much energy towards that goal. And it just really gets to like, I wish that everyone taught children that. I wish everyone, and my parents actually always taught me that. They said, you know, do what you love, but figure out how to make money doing it. That was like the credo in my household. And me and my sister, you know, we're pretty happy people because we did that. But you know, if only every household was like that. Hopefully as yoga spreads, then more people get access to this information, and that, you know, it just allows little kids to be who they are. It doesn't have to impose, you know, structures on them that cause them to shrivel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts before we meditate?
Just confirming what you said, I feel so grateful and blessed, and it feels so good to do what you love.
Yeah.
And I say that to people when I'm trying to inspire them. I'm like, you could do anything. You can do nails. You can, you know, cook for people and make it. You know, if you love it, you do it, and you'll find a way to make money, you know,
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in America. I mean, maybe not other places, but here there's a lot of opportunity. You know, I know in Italy, you know, it's kind of weird. Like if you want to change occupations, it's weird. It's sort of against the culture. It's just bringing it back to Italy, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, like
Always.
my cousins would say like, oh no, once you have a job, like that's what your job needs to be. Or like I know in Asia, that's like a big deal too. If you, like in China or Japan, I've read like you don't want to dishonor, like you stay in the company that you're in. You do whatever you can do to stay in the company. I mean, people are even working themselves to death in Japan, you know, because there's this honor and you don't want to dishonor the family around it. So like we are very, very lucky to be here where you can kind of choose if you have the mental strength and to break into your own freedom, that you could definitely choose any moment to change your life.
You also have to be aware that there are those options out there, because uh, I think it is the case in many environments where the idea of options simply is not there. And I'm not talking about cultural things. I'm talking about socioeconomic
Yeah, yeah, with poverty or
limitations, you know,
mhm.
and it's really hard to break out of that, because you do have to put food on the table. And if you were never taught that there are these options,
Right.
if you never, not even taught, I mean, it's here on Long Island, it's different. It's, you are exposed to so much. I grew up in a working class suburb of Buffalo. I can tell you, I had never even heard of Harvard before I got to college. Well, actually, it was the spring of my senior year when one of the kids in our class, who started out as a physicist and became a poet, was, you know, got a full ride to MIT. He was so brilliant at it. But I had never, what's MIT? I had no idea. And a lot of it had to do with how I grew up and what I was exposed to. And I think the nice thing for me was when I did go to college, all of a sudden it was like, boom, this huge explosion of light and air and of all these things around me. So I think, but there is a great deal to be said for the luck of having found a way to step out of that particular bubble into a larger bubble, you know?
Mm-hmm. You know, that's where I'm a big proponent. I think that higher education should be free.
Oh, amen.
It
Amen.
really should. We need to keep the minds open and healthy of the people in our culture, and that changes the whole culture. The more educated the culture is, the less violent, the more opportunities. You know, it's just that's the Vedic way too. That everyone should have access to education. It's just you know, hopefully things change in our lifetime now. We'll see. We'll see what happens in the next 4 years.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of repair to do and a lot of just getting us out of this chasm we've landed in.
Oh, he's got a lot of energy, so hopefully he does.
He does, and he's got some good people working with him, so we'll see.
Yeah. All right, so we're at 8:18, so let's do a quick pranayam and we'll sit for meditation.
Okay.
You could take your right hand and open up the palm, fold the peace fingers into the center of the palm, close off the right nostril, inhale through the left, close off both, exhale through the right, inhale through the right, close off both, exhale through the left, inhale through the left, close off both, exhale through the right. Okay, and then from here, you'll continue until you're finished, and we'll sit for 20.
Bringing the hands to prayer, bowing the head. Namaste. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
You too. Thank you.
Hope to see you tomorrow.
Take care. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.